With me today, I have three members, employees of the Bureau of Reclamation. To my immediate right is Wolfgang Sattler, also known as Fritz.
Exactly.
And we will call him Fritz. In the middle is Chuck Moody, who I've known for a number of years. And to his right is Lorentz Haugseth, who I've just met today, as I've just met Fritz today for the very first time.
The job that they wanted me for was to go to Roswell, New Mexico, and run the membrane plant there. And Roswell, of course, everybody knows this was a project of Office of Saline Water, and Office of Saline Water had four other research facilities. I think is Freeport, Texas, and Webster, was it South Dakota, and then Wrightsville Beach and Point Loma. My job was to go to Roswell and test the membranes there and to compare that with I think it was the General Electric vapor compression plant.
Chuck, when you went to work for the Bureau,
Yeah.
You had done some work in your graduate studies on forward osmosis, which in those days was pretty unusual.
Right. I worked with John Kessler. Our first experiments we did in '71. He had contacted Bob Riley, and Bob Riley had sent us these membranes. And so we tried out fertilizer-driven forward osmosis, which worked really well. That is, the fertilizer, see, in forward osmosis, you don't get pure water from forward osmosis. You get, in the case of fertilizer, a fertilizer-charged irrigation water. But for open field agriculture, after we did the test worked, but you really don't get much. You get only 1% of the water requirement with the fertilizer. So then we switched to human nutrients, in which case it's well matched. Your daily intake of, say, 2,000 kilocalories of food energy can supply several liters of water from seawater and 10 to 20 liters of water from brackish water. So it's a well-matched ratio of food and of nutrient and water requirements. So I did that, and then so John Kessler, we call him the father of FO. He coined the word FO because he wanted to explicitly distinguish it from reverse osmosis, which is going in reverse. He wanted to say we're going forward. So anyone who uses the word forward osmosis is paying homage to John Kessler.
Let's talk about humor a little bit, because you're all involved in humor. I noticed in the write-up you sent to Doug that you had worked a little bit on not only the piping system,
Which system?
The piping system.
Yes.
So you elected to go to aluminum bronze, but you also were looking at FRP as it relates to the the membrane pressure vessels themselves.
Yes, exactly.
And I was interested to see that you'd been doing some work on that and had caused the thickness to be increased to make it a 50-year life component as opposed to a 20-year life component. Could you describe a little bit about what you did there?
Well, first of all, in our lab, we try to come up with some basic FRP relationship to pressure in aging, and then we had pretty good data with vessels going up back 10 years. Some of them actually had been stored in the lab, and so we knew that initially you get typical strength of 14 to 18,000 psi, and then after, it was a steep decline, and slowly would flatten out, and after 10 years you'd be down to 13,000 psi, and at 25 years you were down below half. And so, we included a 1.5 safety factor. And so we had relatively, the hydronautics vessels were probably about half-inch thick, and they were 8-inch diameter.
8.5. 8.5.
8.5. And fluid systems, was close to 2 inches thick, those vessels.
Yeah, so larger diameter.
And much larger, or larger diameter. And I think, were they 30 inches?
12 inches.
12.
Oh, 12, yeah, okay. So, anyway, we decided that you couldn't do it for the main piping. It was just, at that time, the FRP technology hadn't advanced to reinforce it better, or to get higher strength out of it.
Right.
So anyway, we designed for 50-year life. But with the safety, that was, it could have been interpreted as a 35-year life if you took the safety factor out.
Right. Now, Larry, you, in some of your early work, you were commenting, or when you were telling us about some of your early work, you were commenting on the fact that a lot of the systems that you were looking at Roswell and elsewhere had no pretreatment. Now, it was pretty clear that you were going to need some pretreatment at Yuma on the Welton Mohawk drainage water.
One of the reasons to go with this partial lime softening, they call it, because it uses the bicarbonate in the water to perform calcium carbonate with the lime, was the cellulose acetate requires low pH of about 5.5.
Right.
And to bring that down, so the lime softening had the advantage, even though you're adding a chemical, it removed the buffer, the bicarbonate, so that to drop the pH down, you didn't need much acid. So that's, even though you paid for it lime, you saved on acid. And I'd heard that story for a long time, and I thought, I don't know if I really believe that. But when we ran the plant, but sometimes acid prices go up, and then you really notice the difference.
Right.
And so we just had a report done by Siege Tomb Hill and Black and Beach for our partners in Yuma on a test we had with MWD, Southern Nevada, and Central Arizona Project. And they just looked at the comparison of replacing their lime softening with microfiltration pretreatment. Of course, lime softening is already there, but it turns out the lime softening with polyamide membranes, if it works effectively, is 20 to 25% less than microfiltration would be if we brought in new microfiltration. Of course, that's comparing an existing facility with a replacement. Right. But even now, what are we talking, 30 years later, 40 years later, the lime softening it works very effectively.
There is one footnote to this pretreatment at Yuma. I ended up running some experiments on using the brine to regenerate ion exchange resins, cationic ion exchange resins, to soften the water. I ran tests, and my tests were followed by Dr. Kakinen's tests on the same subject, and I think we both showed that it was feasible. Same as a home water softener, where you you soften the water using salt. Well, we have all that brine water at Yuma that can, why not use it to soften the incoming water? But apparently this concept has gone nowhere. And what about that, Chuck? Is it?
Well, I think it's a very exciting process. It's almost like magic, where you use the same composition of water that comes out the reject as a salt replacement. And the way that works is in the ion exchange kinetics, at different ionic strengths, the different components favor. So at high concentration, it favors the sodium form on ion exchange, and at low concentration, it favors the divalent form. Well, as a matter of fact, Larry, Water Reuse Foundation has just funded a project to evaluate that. and with Carollo engineers in Phoenix.
Oh, good.
We're evaluating to increase the recovery at the Scottsdale plant, for example, even higher. They're looking at the RO reject and then taking it through an ion exchange softener and then going through an electrodialysis unit.